One Piece Manga Chapter 1120 titled Atlas. For the first time in years, we have a chapter that is 19 pages long. In this chapter, Vegapunk's message continues to be broadcasted all over the world. We also discover another two characters who bear the will of D, and finally, we see Emeth speaking to Luffy for the very first time. So sit back and enjoy the rest of the video. The cover page of the chapter is the 10th volume of the limited cover story, Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage. In the previous volume, we saw a few kids throwing rocks at Yamato. This volume continues with Denjiro capturing the kids and putting them in timeout. It seems like he is settling into his new role as the daimyo of Kibi region. It's also great to see that he does not hold any resentment towards Yamato, even though Yamato is Kaido's child. Children should never bear the sins of their parents, so it's great to see him helping Yamato out. The chapter begins with a flashback 26 years ago in Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard looked completely different back then. This was way before Caesar set off the explosion, and before the terrain of the island was completely changed by Akainu and Aokiji's fight. Clover arrives on Punk Hazard and is seen at the entrance having a conversation with Dr. Vegapunk. Clover begs Vegapunk to aid him in his research about the Void Century, as it is important to learn about what had happened. Clover refuses to let the world's blank history remain shrouded in darkness. After conducting his research for quite some time, Clover concluded that he needed expertise in various fields for his research to progress. The mini dragon lets out a little growl. Now, I wonder if this is the same dragon that Zoro defeated in Punk Hazard that ultimately became food for the Straw Hats. It would be a sad fate if this is the same dragon. Despite Clover's plea, Vegapunk refuses to give his assistance. He tells Clover that he is already working for the government, and he can't afford to leak any of his findings to Clover. However, despite his reluctance to help, Vegapunk is still concerned about Clover's safety. He reminds him of the countless times he's been captured, emphasizing that there's no doubt the world government has their eyes on him. For those of you who don't know much about Clover, here's a bit of information for you. Clover is a researcher and an adventurer who is obsessed with the Void Century. He traveled around the world to seek information about the subject. Due to his research, he was arrested by the Marines 10 times. Fortunately, he managed to escape every single time, which contributed to his worldwide fame. Vegapunk doesn't believe that Clover escaped because of his wits. Instead, Vegapunk believes that on those occasions, the world government intentionally let him escape. And Vegapunk hopes Clover will realize that the world government has ulterior motives in letting him go. Vegapunk believes they need Clover alive to track down his companions. He insists that Clover should abandon his illegal research, and that it would be better to let the past remain shrouded. At its core, Vegapunk is convinced that Clover won't find the answers to good and evil through those old stories. Clover sits down. With a grim look on his face, he tells Vegapunk a story that finally reveals the very reason why he wanted to study the Void Century. Clover tells Vegapunk that a long time ago, he knew a man who carried the initial D. One day, this man was killed right in front of him. Clover reveals that this man, who he grew up with, is his big brother. Vegapunk's eyes widened in disbelief. He instantly grasps the significance of Clover's words. Clover reveals that his true name is Cleve de Clover. Shortly after his brother was killed, Clover lied to the Cypher Pelagians. He claimed to be a mere friend just to save his own life. The next moment, Clover yells with pain and regret. He asks Vegapunk how he is meant to accept a world where you can die just for having the wrong name. Clover further adds that history will only continue to be suppressed, and the people will never know about it. Vegapunk finally breaks his silence. He tells Clover that he will forget Clover's revelation about his true name, but will refuse to aid his research in any way. As Vegapunk turns and begins to walk away, Vegapunk reminds Clover to stay safe. As Vegapunk walks further away from Clover, Clover calls out to the genius scientist. He tells him about the voices of the past calling out to him. Clover vows to solve Void Century's puzzle. And when he finally deciphers it, Vegapunk surely won't be able to ignore them. The scene shifts to another flashback 22 years ago. In Punk Hazard, Caesar asks Vegapunk if he heard about the news from the West Blue. Caesar tells Vegapunk that Ohara got destroyed by a Buster Call. Caesar excitedly tells Vegapunk to take a look. He laughs at the thought of Clover, who finally got killed. Caesar thinks it's the archaeologist's fault for looking into the Void Century. He thinks that no one else will be interested in studying it anymore. After all, the world government had already made an example of them through the annihilation of Ohara. The news rendered Vegapunk speechless as he was reminded of Clover's desperate pleas. As Vegapunk stares at the wanted poster of Nico Robin, Caesar tells him that the child is the tragedy's only survivor. The scene shifts to Ohara. On his visit, Vegapunk stands near the Lake of Books, holding a bouquet of flowers. Vegapunk believes that Clover must have had a chance to escape back then. In the next moment, Vegapunk's tears stream down his face. The genius scientist is unable to suppress his emotions. Vegapunk couldn't accept that Clover chose death, especially because he died entrusting his research to the next generation. Vegapunk thinks that due to the annihilation of Ohara, no one would be curious enough to give up their life to continue the scholar's footsteps. The scene shifts back to the present. On Egghead Island, and around the world, the video broadcast resumes. Vegapunk recounts the words of a man who once said that the voices of the past call out to him. Vegapunk says that it's the victors who write history. This gave me huge goosebumps, as what Vegapunk said reminds me of a similar thing that Doflamingo said a long time ago. He said that those who stand at the top determine what is right, and that whoever wins the war becomes justice. As the broadcast continues, the scene briefly shifts to the Bharati. Zeph and Patty attentively listen to Vegapunk's message. Meanwhile, in Tequila Wolf, a guard mercilessly whips the prisoners, paying no heed to the video broadcast. Vegapunk believes that the words of the oppressed, despite getting cast away into a deep, dark ocean, will eventually come to light. As long as the oppressed endure and carry it on their backs. Hearing this deeply moves Robin. As she covers her eyes, she thinks of the scholars of Ohara who sought the truth of the Void Century. The scene shifts to the Labo phase. As Zoro and Jinbei are making their way to the Thousand Sunny, Zoro urges the crew to hurry and blast off. However, Lilith tells Zoro that they can't blast off just yet. Zoro warns that Nazjuro will continue to attempt to attack them if they do not leave. However, according to Lilith, that's precisely why they can't leave yet. Lilith says that the Thousand Sunny can only fly for a kilometer, and if Nazjuro disrupts their trajectory even a little bit, they won't make it to the sea and escape. A brief moment shifts to Nazjuro as he prepares for another attack. Lilith has observed that the wind is blowing north. Lilith adds that due to the wind, it reduces their lift and will make it easier for the ship to fall short of its projected landing zone. And based on Lilith's calculations, missing the ocean will cause critical damage. So, before they can take off, they must get rid of Nazjuro first. The next moment, an unknown entity suddenly approaches Lilith. Before she can react, Atlas appears out of nowhere and knocks Lilith down with a powerful punch. Zoro, Usopp, and Chopper are unable to process what they are seeing. Zoro asks Atlas why she had punched Lilith, but she is too busy catching her breath. She didn't give an answer and proceeded to remove something at the back of Lilith's head. A snap sound is heard as Atlas succeeds in turning off a device inside Lilith. Atlas then turns to the Straw Hat Pirates and entrusts Lilith in their care. Urging them to take flight, Atlas says she'll clear a path for the Thousand Sunny so the crew can make it out in one piece. Usopp wonders what Atlas is talking about. Along with Zoro and Chopper, he still has no idea what Atlas is planning. Meanwhile, York notices that Lilith's signal has been cut off. With this, she concludes that Atlas is the only Vegapunk remaining besides herself. Lilith is unconscious. Nami orders Zoro to take Lilith inside, to which Zoro immediately affirms. But, as they demand an explanation from Atlas, she has already flown off toward the grimacing Gorosei. Nazjuro gallops towards the Thousand Sunny, while Jinbei prepares to take flight. Chopper is surprised by how quickly Jinbei took action. Jinbei opts not to hesitate any further, as he refuses to regret wasting this opportunity later. Zoro impatiently urges Brook to pull the lever. As Brook affirms, Atlas charges at Nazjuro and grabs him. In a split second, Nazjuro slices off one of Atlas's hands, but she keeps holding on to his body. Atlas activates her dome shoes and jetpack to push the Gorosei out of the Straw Hat Pirate's way. In the next moment, the Thousand Sunny sets out using Kudo Burst. Chopper and Usopp cling tightly to Jinbei as they embark in the sky. The scene shifts to the northeast coast of Egghead Island. The lowly Marines are struggling to comprehend what they are witnessing. They ask Vice Admiral Hound what's going on as they see a giant boar, a snake, a huge bird, and an iron robot. The lowly Marines wonder just where in the world these giant creatures spawn. Unfortunately, Vice Admiral Hound has no idea either. As the broadcast continues, Vegapunk could only pray that his upcoming message will be safely transmitted to the world. Meanwhile, Luffy has his eyes popping out of their sockets. As they shine like stars, Luffy looks excited as he sees Emeth. Sanji, Frankie, and the giant pirates are shocked but also ecstatic to encounter such a cool iron robot. Emeth begins to communicate with Luffy. He feels genuinely happy to have finally reunited with Joy Boy once again. The moment is hilarious. Luffy is silent and confused. Luffy then turns around to see who this Joy Boy is. The next moment, Emeth has a funny reaction and immediately instructs Luffy to look his way. After all, Luffy still does not know that he is Joy Boy. As the broadcast continues, Vegapunk realizes it's foolish to blindly trust in a one-sided account of a 900-year-old battle. Emeth marches toward the Gorosei. He declares that Joy Boy's enemy is also his enemy. Emeth is glad that he can fight for Joy Boy once again. It's funny how the world is listening attentively to Vegapunk's broadcast and Luffy isn't. Instead, he is thrilled to see the Iron Robot talking. As Warcury tells Jupiter that they must pound them into the dust, Emeth reassures Joy Boy that he will protect him. Meanwhile, Jupiter says that Vegapunk's speech is all but over. The scene shifts to the giant pirates as they reignite their vigor. Broggy asks Luffy if the Iron Robot is a friend. Luffy says that the Iron Robot isn't really his friend. Luffy then tells them that the Iron Robot mentioned something about protecting Joy Boy, but Luffy doesn't know who Joy Boy is. Broggy is confused by what Luffy had said. He informs Luffy that he and his crew didn't hear a thing from Emeth. Luffy is surprised by what Broggy said. Little do they know that Emeth was using the voice of all things to communicate with Luffy. In fact, Luffy does not know it either. For those of you who might not remember, or are aware, the voice of all things is an incredibly rare ability that allows the users to communicate telepathically with people, creatures, and objects in the world without the need for a physical message. Right now, as far as we know, only Gold D. Roger, Kozuki Oden, Kozuki Momonosuke, Zunisha, the Three-Eyed Tribe, and Luffy possess the ability. And based on Luffy's communication with the Iron Robot, it's confirmed that, like Zunisha, Emeth uses the voice of all things too. As the giant warrior pirate ship continues to sail, Vice Admiral Bluegrass, who is still a child, orders the Marines to shoot the vessel. The Marines can't afford to let them escape. As the cannons rain down on the giant warrior pirate ship on different sides, Vegapunk resumes his message. He believes the world should be able to investigate and study the past from every possible perspective. The genius scientist could only wish he had more time to do this. Vegapunk then reveals that there is a group of people who cannot be stopped from exploring history. In the next moment, Jupiter charges at Emeth, his mouth gaping wide, ready to devour him. But Emeth has already prepared a counterattack for the colossal sandworm. Emeth raises his left arm over his right arm in a pose that reminds me of Mazinger's Rocket Punch. Immediately, the pose excites Frankie and Sanji. Their eyes shine like stars as they are eager to see what attack will come out from Emeth. But as Jupiter quickly closes in, Emeth's Rocket Punch fails to come out. It is at this moment that Emeth knew he had messed up. Luffy's features left his face in disbelief, while Sanji and Frankie have their jaws dropping from utter dismay. Sanji hurriedly warns Emeth to watch out because Jupiter's about to land his attack.
So,
In the next moment, Jupiter crunches a part of Emeth's body. With only one arm left, Emeth holds Jupiter in place. Luffy and the pirates shouted at Emeth in grave worry. With this, Saint Saturn confirms that Emeth's weapons have been rendered inoperable after the last 900 years. Saturn rushes toward where Jupiter is. He tells him to crush Emeth and the pirates. Saturn also tells Jupiter to end the transmission once and for all. Saint Saturn then leaps off Jupiter's back and lands on the giant warrior pirate ship. Although some are shocked, the giant pirates unsheathe their blades, prepared to bring down Saint Saturn. However, Saint Saturn is intensely fixated on Bonnie and Kuma. He specifically reminds those two that he will not let them escape. Kuma is still unconscious. Meanwhile, the young Bonnie looks shocked upon hearing the Gorosei's threat. The scene shifts to Sanji. He is startled by what he notices above. At the Labo phase, he sees the Thousand Sunny and another entity falling down from the sky. The scene shifts to the Thousand Sunny. Zoro tells everyone to hold on tight as the ship is finally descending. Nami hugs the huge timber with all her might. They are wondering if they can make it safely to the ground. In the middle of their battle, Nozduro finds out Atlas's original plan. It is to make herself a grand sacrifice. Nozduro then slashes Atlas to escape from her tight grasp. With a satisfied smile, Atlas rejects Nozduro's guess. Instead of a sacrifice, she says she's just lending the Straw Hats a hand. An explosion follows the next moment as Atlas blows herself up. The Thousand Sunny gradually makes it to the ocean. Usopp and Chopper's voices break in emotion as they cry their hearts out. Usopp yells that they will land on the ocean only because of Atlas's plan. As all these different scenes are occurring, Vegapunk's message continues. He says that 25 years ago, the Pirate King Gold D. Roger achieved the unprecedented by circumnavigating the globe. With this, Vegapunk has no doubt that the Roger pirates have heard the whole thing. The voices of the past from the purest possible source. The scene briefly shifts to Punk Records. York celebrates when she notices that Atlas's signal is finally gone. At last, York informs the Gorosei that she's the last Vegapunk. The scene shifts to the Gorosei's reactions. As Nozduro regenerates from Atlas's self-destructive attack, he remarks that the situation is not unfolding as York expects. Is Nozduro hinting that there is another Vegapunk, or that he is aware that Lilith is still around? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Saint Saturn exclaims they have let Vegapunk Stella disclose far too many secrets. Mercury and Jupiter agree with Saturn, and to end this once and for all, they charge toward Emeth. As Emeth stands before the Gorosei, Emeth admits that he has truly rusted away. He believes this is the time Joy Boy spoke of. He then asks Joy Boy if he can now use a certain something that has yet to be revealed. The scene shifts back to the video broadcast. At this point, Vegapunk is confident that everyone will arrive at the same conclusion. He anticipates that is what will ultimately shape the course of the future. The scene quickly shifts to Impel Down. The prisoners are staggered by the news. They wonder aloud if Vegapunk truly said that Gold D. Roger carries the initial D. And with that, the chapter ends. What do you think of this chapter? Also, what do you think Emeth is about to use? I'd love to hear from you, so comment below and let me know what you think. As always, press like if you enjoyed the video, and if you don't want to miss out on future One Piece chapters like this one, definitely subscribe and hit that bell icon. There will be no break next week, so I'll catch you in the next video. Till then, thank you for watching the video, and have a great day.